Want to scare the bejesus out of your 5e players? Just give them a pack of afflicted cave goblins. Let's talk about it in this review of Ultimate Bestiary Revenge of the Horde by Nord Games. Let's dive in. Here we have Ultimate Bestiary Revenge of the Horde by Nord Games. This is a Game Master's toolbox, so only for Game Masters. Okay, so this is actually one of the very first projects that I've ever kickstarted way back in the day. And I actually had a group that played 5e, and you know, sometimes when you play with veterans who think they know it all, it's just nice to throw them a little bone every now and then. And this one certainly has a lot of bones. It's got all of the standard creatures that you're probably going to face at low level, like first tier between levels 1 and 5, and it changes them up in a really good way. The very first thing we have are some instructions, but of course if you're reading this or if you've bought this, then you kind of already know what to expect. It's just a different monster manual. Not necessarily better, although it does change the game up a little bit. And the very first section that we have is about bugbears. By the way, it's all in alphabetical order, so we are of course going to start with bugbears, and we get a breakdown of their culture and the kinds of environments that they like to live in. And then we get into their different war bands. And it's all done with the CRs for 1 through 4, 5 through 8, 9 through 12, and so on. I really like that they separated it into those different CRs. That way, if you really are running a first tier group, you could just roll on a D8 and then you have an instant encounter right then and there. Very good, very well done. I like that. And they do this for every single creature in this book, or the different categories of creatures. And of course you get different bugbears like the bugbear archer, cutthroats, all with a different challenge rating, brute, hunter, elder, ambusher, warrior, headman, and all the way up to shaman. And they even have a trinket chart, and you can even customize a bugbear lair with some extra details. And of course there are some sample tribes that Nord Games throws in there, which is a really good read. So not the most in-depth of all of the creatures in this book, but it is a good start. It just gives you a lot of variety to play with for those veterans who think they know it all. And then we have gnolls. And I really do like that the gnolls in this book are separated by the different environments that they live in. So you have plain gnolls, which are just, the gnolls that like to roam around the plains. So you have the gnoll runner, gnoll archer, gnoll spearman. You even have a shaman. Of course, you end with the trinkets and the lairs that you can find them in. Then you have the gutter trolls. So think of like steampunk gnolls in a way. And by steampunk, I'm not talking about like the technology, but like think about gnolls with like a fancy tuxedo jacket, maybe wearing a top hat. These guys live in the gutters and they like to steal from people and stuff like that. They actually live in those urban environments, just in the places where nobody is going to go. And so you have different gutter gnoll war bands as from before. And so you have the Lightfoot, a tracker, the fighter, the pack leader, and of course we end with a shaman, because every intelligent creature needs a shaman. And then we have the rock gnolls. So for gnolls that like to live in the mountains or in the crags, valleys, and stuff like that, you got a gnoll runt, a gnoll sneak, alpha, and of course the shaman. So they're all different, and their abilities, their spells that they have, and their challenge ratings, which is good because like when you get to the end for like the rock gnoll shaman, you have a challenge rating of 8 right there for your higher level players. And of course the very lowest of the runts we have is a quarter challenge rating. So we're going all the way from a quarter all the way up to level 8. So a lot of a very widespread variety. So even if you are running like at a tier 2, you can still make things interesting with some of these gnolls. And of course, if you're running those higher tiers, you always have the war bands that you can roll on. This one only goes up to level 12 or CR 9 through 12, which is the third tier. And then we have some sample gnoll clans. And then we get to my favorite, the Goblins. Oh man. This is probably one of the main reasons why I got or backed this book on Kickstarter. When I was reading through all of the details and I got to goblins, hey, my players are low level. They need some interesting goblins to play with. So let's take a look. We start off with forest goblins, probably your standard run-of-the-mill goblins that your players are more likely to meet up at the very beginning of their adventuring career. So we have just a standard forest goblin. We got a forest goblin sneak, a thief, a trapper, and of course a shaman, complete with its own trinkets and layered details. And I also do like these little notes that they have spread out throughout the book. Some of them are actually written as that creature. I think there's one that's written like a goblin somewhere in this book. Next, we have hill goblins. Very interesting, although these are kind of still like your standard run-of-the-mill goblins. So you got the standard hill goblin, the goblin archer, and this is that note that I was talking about. The Tales of the Brave Little Goblin, traditional goblin campfire story transcribed by Gisick the Educated Goblin. Very funny read. A bomber, a driver, the warrior, the alchemist, the beast master. And all of the beasts that are listed here are in the back of the book for referencing, champion, and the warlord. And then we have my favorite. Oh, the cave goblins. I presented the cave goblins to my players many years ago, and my gosh, when I described to them how horrified they look and how diseased they looked, yeah, they ran. So this is like the creme de la crop over here. So we start off with the runts. Then we have the standard cave goblin. And then you have a goblin brute and the feral cave goblin. So these guys live underground, obviously, and they're mutated. They're different. They're not your standard goblins. These guys have weird abilities. And then we get to the afflicted cave goblin. Man, these guys, brain dead. The afflicted cave goblin is immune to spells that require an intelligence, wisdom, or charisma saving throw. Explosive death. When the afflicted cave goblin is reduced to 0 hit points, fungal spores explode, creating a 20-foot radius cloud centered on its body. All creatures that start their turn on the fungal cloud must succeed at a DC 15 Constitution saving throw or become infected with Goblin's Trumpet, which is right there. Man, if you are not getting the Last of Us vibes from this guy, then I don't know who you are. But man, these guys are sick and dope. I love using these guys in my standard fantasy campaigns. And of course, we have a Goblin King. Look at that fat little guy using a regular goblin as his footrest. Oh, just doesn't get much better than that. And of course, we have our Goblin tribes. Next on, we move on to Hobgoblins, and just like the Bugbears, they're just providing you with some variety. So we have the Hobgoblin Scout, the Grunt, the Warrior, the Archer, Pikeman, Arbalester, Soldier, Centurion, Legate, Imperator, and that's it. Of course, we still get our trinkets and their details, as well as a brief rundown of some sample tribes. So just like the Bugbears, they're just adding some variety. There's nothing really too flashy about these guys. They're just giving them better equipment. Next, we have Cobalts. So if you're not running goblins as your first adventure creatures to fight up against, you're probably running kobolds. And so we've got some interesting kobolds for you. We start off with the Warren kobolds, which are just your standard regular kobolds. They only care about what's inside of their pack, and they're kind of like the beast masters within their group. So we have miners, javelin throwers, spearmen, beast master, the king, and then we get to dragon kobolds. So these guys are ascended a little bit. So if you've ever read the Dragon Lance books, you know that the kobolds in that series have wings and stuff like that. Yeah, we're getting to that. So we have the Cobalt Acolytes, the Cobalt Warriors, and then we get to the Dragon Cobalt Mutant. And these guys actually have wings. They look terrifying. The Wizards and the Prophets. So these guys definitely believe that they're the descendants of dragons. And they play that up like the wazoo. Some sample Cobalt clans, and that is it. We move on to Ogres. Nice little blurb about the culture of ogres, by the way, and some of the environments that they can be in. Ogres are terrifying because they're big, but they don't have to be big. So if you have a low level group, you can give them an adolescent ogre. Still quite terrifying with that half CR rating. These guys, if I'm not mistaken, are still, I think these are medium size. Yes, a medium giant. So there we go. Just perfect for your little level 1 players who think they know it all, and you're going to show them up. So adolescent ogres, we have the ogre hurler, so hurling big boulders from far away. The chargers, so if you see an ogre running at you with a big trunk, you might want to start running in the opposite direction. But remember, go sideways. Don't run the same way, because he's probably going to catch up. Okay, I've learned that from Prometheus. Ogre berserker, ogre collector, all terrifying and big. And then we get the ogre master at a CR 16. Yeah, if you find one of these guys, you might want to start running. We have the Okiti. These are rat people. So there really isn't much to say about that. They just give you some standard or some different Okiti to play with. I'm pretty sure these are in your Monster Manual, 5th edition as well, but they're just standard. So here we have Sneak, Brigands, Assassins. I really do like the artwork in this book, especially with the Okiti, because they really do play up that role. I mean, just look at this Brigand. He looks like a pirate, and it's actually pretty interesting. The Assassin, the Poisoner, the Ringleader. Again, love that hat. And the Swashbuckler. So very interesting, different Okiti to play around with, although they only go up to level or challenge rating 2, it looks like. So these are definitely going to be your low tier players, and I think their war bands are, let's take a look. They don't actually have only up to 2nd tier. So interesting that. And then of course you have some colonies that you can take and play around with. And then you have orcs, everybody's favorite orcs. Save the orcs. You get a nice rundown of the orc culture, as well as role-playing orcs, the language and common names of orcs, because believe it or not, at the back of the book, there are options for player characters for some of these races. This one goes all the way up to tier 5, so have fun building those war bands. We start off with archers and soldiers, warriors, battleborn, bruiser, captain, commander, and shaman, because every intelligent race needs a shaman, berserker, and warlord. Man, if that doesn't speak of Warcraft and anything else, I don't know what will, but that looks pretty sweet. Got trinkets and lair details, as well as some orc tribes like the Bone Crackers, the Moon Daughters, and the Gold Arms. Very, very interesting, and they go all the way up to CR6. Next, we have trolls. So if you're looking to bring something a little bit more different from your standard run-of-the-mill goblins and orcs, then this is where you might want to turn to when your players at a little bit of a higher level. So we have forest trolls, and I really do like this artwork for all of these trolls. Cave trolls, swamp trolls, frost trolls, being a Yeti dude, mountain troll, love that extra head there growing on his side, and hill trolls, all the way up to CR20. Yeah. Also, can I just really point out, goats really do that. I once saw a baby goat in a tree once. They like to hop around in all sorts of different places. Of course, you have troll trinkets and anatomy, and some troll lair details. So beware if you use the trolls. So at the very back of the book, we have all of the beasts that are mentioned, say like in the goblins or the bugbears that they use in some of their stats. Those are actually statted here. So you have brown hyena, striped hyena, spotted hyena, the lucrota, which I've actually used before, the crocota, and then you've got some lizards here, scrofa old boar. So really nice, and just different animals to actually flesh out your war bands if you're using this. Some of these stats also make use of different tools or potions, and those are statted out here. So you like the Berserker Brew, Urdfursa, or the Bugbear Harpoon, Dragon Breath Potion. Those are all statted here, and they also have different effects that you can roll for randomization. And then you have playable races like the Bugbear, the gnoll, hill goblin, another hobgoblin, a cobalt, which I believe, over time as we've been getting more 5e supplements, those have already been statted out. And I think there are also some official resources that have statted those things out. But if you're looking for a little bit more of a variety, then you can definitely get this book for that purpose. It does have some great resources for your players in terms of player characters. And at the very back of the book, you get maps, which is fine if you have the PDF version of this. You can take it from the PDF, or actually, I think you do get the JPEG map pack when you get this as a digital, and you could just plug it into your virtual tabletop program. Not really useful on paper, but oh well. And then, of course, we have an index of all of the monsters by CR, which is fairly nice. And so that is it for Revenge of the Horde. So very interesting monster book. If you're looking for something of more variety, just something to spook your players who think they know everything, just give them something different and really have fun with it. So that's it for this review. I highly recommend this book. And of course, its sequel, which I'll be taking a look at next week, The Dreaded Accursed, which is about the undead. So feel free to look forward to that. Feel free to leave a comment down below. Give this video a huge thumbs up to support the series, and subscribe if you would like to see more. I will see you guys in the next video.